I thought planning my dream wedding would be the happiest time of my life. Until my mother told me to cancel it. Because my sister, the golden child, couldn't handle my happiness. That's when I realized I wasn't losing a family. I was finally seeing the truth. Before we go into this story, if you love intense family drama that will keep you at the edge of your seat, please do well to subscribe to our channel. My name is Jame, and for most of my life I believed love and loyalty were unconditional, especially when it came to family. But what I've learned is that some families only offer selective love. And sometimes choosing peace means breaking away from the people you thought you needed the most. If you're watching this, tell me in the comments, have you ever felt like the outsider in your own family? Where are you tuning in from? I'd love to know who else out there understands this kind of heartbreak. Because this isn't just a story about a ruined wedding. It's about how I uncovered decades of betrayal. And why walking away became the most powerful thing I've ever done. It all started the moment I got engaged to the love of my life, Alex. We'd been together for 4 steady, beautiful years. We weren't flashy, we weren't dramatic. We were just real. He made me feel like I mattered. Like I was seen. Which was more than I could say for my own mother. The day we announced our engagement, I sent a group text to my family. Something simple, something joyful. A photo of the ring. A message, he asked. I said yes. I was buzzing with excitement, waiting for the love to pour in. But what I got was silence. Hours passed. Then came the first message. That's nice. Have you told your sister yet? From my mom. Not, congratulations. Not, I'm so happy for you. Just a prompt to remember my sister. The golden one. The one who, apparently, had to be considered before any decision I made. Her name is Candace. And she's everything I'm not, at least in my mother's eyes. Candace is dramatic, dazzling, a spotlight seeker who cries at the drop of a hat and somehow always turns every situation into her own personal saga. She's been married twice already, and both weddings were lavish, chaotic, and funded almost entirely by my parents. Me. I wasn't asking for a dime. Just their presence. Their blessing. A little bit of joy on my behalf. But even that apparently was too much. The next phone call I got from my mom changed everything. She told me, point blank, that having my wedding in the spring would be insensitive. Candace had just gotten divorced, she said. She was emotionally fragile. And my big happy wedding would be like a slap in the face. As if my happiness was a personal attack on her. As if I needed to put my life on hold, yet again for someone else's drama. But this wasn't new. Not really. I grew up in Candace's shadow. At every birthday, holiday, or family dinner, if Candace cried, we all walked on eggshells. If she didn't get her way, the world stopped spinning. Me. I was the fixer. The quiet one. The easy child. Which, in my mother's world, translated to invisible. So when I heard those words, you should cancel or postpone the wedding for your sister's sake. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stood there, frozen. It wasn't just about the wedding anymore. It was about every time I'd been told to shrink myself so Candace could shine. Every time my achievements were ignored, my needs dismissed, my voice silenced. Also, the golden child could keep her crown. And now, the biggest moment of my life was just another casualty in the long war for my mother's approval. That night, I stared at the guest list, my hands shaking. Their names were there. Mom, Dad, Candace. People who were supposed to love me, support me, be happy for me. And all I could feel was grief. Not over the wedding, but over the realization that I had built my life trying to win people who had no intention of ever seeing me. That was the moment something inside me cracked. I didn't cancel the wedding, but I did make a change. A quiet one at first. I removed 3 names from the guest list. Then I texted my mom. No drama. No tears. Just one sentence. I've decided to have the wedding with people who are happy for me. I hope you understand. There was silence for a full day. Then the backlash came like a tidal wave. Accusations. Guilt trips. Family is everything. Blood is thicker. You're being cruel. And of course, how dare you do this to your sister? But I didn't back down. For the first time in my life, I didn't explain myself. I didn't ask for permission. I just chose me. And that's when things got ugly. Because my mother wasn't going to take no for an answer. Not when her golden child was crying. Not when she couldn't control the narrative anymore. What she did next turned my entire world upside down. And it made me realize just how far a mother will go to protect the daughter she actually loves. What do you think she did? Have you ever had to cut ties with a family member for your own peace? Comment your thoughts or predictions. I read everyone. I thought uninviting them would be the hardest part, but I had no idea what my mom was planning behind my back. And when I found out, it nearly destroyed everything. If you've ever set a boundary with a toxic family member, you know what happens next. They don't respect it. They rage against it. The moment I uninvited my mom and Candace from my wedding, the calls started rolling in. From cousins, family friends, even my aunt in Florida I hadn't spoken to in 2 years. Each one asking the same thing. What's going on with your mom? She's devastated. But here's what they didn't know. She wasn't devastated, she was strategizing. I hadn't even sent out the official invites yet, just told her privately. So how did half the family already know I banned her from my wedding? She was spinning a narrative. One where I was the villain. The ungrateful daughter who broke her mother's heart. Meanwhile, I was just trying to have a peaceful, joyful day. Free from guilt. Free from drama. Free from being overshadowed by Candace, for once in my life. But peace. That wasn't in their plan. 1 week after I made the guest list change, Alex sat me down. He looked nervous, almost hesitant, like he didn't want to say what was on his mind. Then he told me, "My mom said someone's been calling her. About us. About the wedding. Someone anonymous. No name left. Just a concerned relative. The message? That I was being emotionally unstable. That I had a history of jealousy toward my sister. And that I was lashing out by excluding people from my life. My future mother-in-law was being warned about me. Let that sink in. My mom, or Candace, or both were trying to poison the one part of my life they didn't control. Alex stood by me, of course. He saw right through it. But that moment shattered something in me. This wasn't a cold shoulder. This was sabotage. And still I stayed silent. Still I didn't call them out. Because somewhere deep inside I think I hoped they'd stop. I hoped the message had been received. That they'd realize I wasn't bluffing. But narcissists don't back down. They escalate. The next blow came from Candace. She posted a photo on Instagram. Just a blurry sonogram image captioned, "Sometimes life surprises you. Can't wait to meet you, little one." The internet exploded with congratulations. I stared at the screen, heart pounding. Could it be real? After 2 failed marriages and years of chaos, was she actually pregnant? Or was it a stunt? The timing was too perfect. Just weeks before my wedding. The attention, the comments, the flood of sympathy, it was all back on her. Then my mom commented, "She's been through so much. She deserves this joy. Unlike some people." Unlike some people. The message was clear. My happiness was an offense. My boundary was an attack. And Candace? She was the victim. I tried to keep my focus on the wedding. On the love Alex and I had built. But the weight of it all was crushing. Every time I looked at the flower arrangements, the seating chart, the dress I once adored, all I could think was, they're trying to ruin this. Not just the event, but me. But here's the thing about breaking free from family dysfunction. There's always a point where fear turns into clarity. Where you stop asking why they do this to you. And start asking, why did I ever let them have this much power? So I made a choice. I didn't call Candace. I didn't ask if the pregnancy was real. I didn't plead with my mom to stop. Instead, I decided to give them what they never expected. A wedding without a single ounce of chaos. A celebration full of love, laughter, and none of their noise. But I still had one card to play. Something I'd been holding back. Something I was going to drop right in the middle of my wedding speech. Because if they were going to tell their side of the story to the world, it was time I told mine. There's a strange calm that comes the moment you stop begging to be understood. A peace that settles when you realize you don't owe anyone your silence, especially not the ones who tried to rewrite your story. I didn't plan to speak at my wedding. Originally, Alex and I had decided on a quiet thank you toast, maybe a few heartfelt words about our journey together. But after everything my mother and sister had done to steal the spotlight, The sabotage, the lies, the emotional manipulation. I knew I had to reclaim my voice. Not with anger. Not with vengeance. But with truth. The night before the wedding, I rewrote my toast. Not out of spite, but out of clarity. Because for the first time in my life, I was no longer scared of what people would say. I was finally ready to speak, even if my voice shook. The ceremony was beautiful. Sunlight streaming through the trees, Alex's hand steady in mine. We said our vows. We kissed. And for a brief moment, the pain of the past felt like a distant echo. But it wasn't over. Not until I stood at that mic. After dinner, the lights dimmed and I took the microphone in hand. The crowd quieted. Everyone expecting something sweet, maybe a little emotional. What they got instead was the story I had buried for decades. I started by thanking our guests, our friends, Alex's family, who had embraced me in ways my own blood never had. Then I said something that made the room sit still. I used to believe that love meant shrinking myself, staying quiet, letting others shine even when it left me in the dark. The air changed. People leaned in. I thought if I was easy enough, small enough, quiet enough, I'd finally be seen. That if I just kept giving, eventually someone would give back. I paused. I could feel my heart pounding through my ribs. But that's not love. That's fear dressed as loyalty. The silence in that tent was deafening. I want to thank every single one of you here tonight. Because your presence means you're here for me and Alex, not some idea of who I'm supposed to be. I looked around at the faces watching me. Faces of friends who had seen me cry in college dorm rooms. Co-workers who knew the tension in my voice every time I said, "I'm fine" on Monday mornings. Then I said it. I uninvited 2 people from this wedding. Because their love came with conditions. Because my joy was treated as an inconvenience. Because I'm done carrying a legacy of silence. There were gasps. Whispers. One of my cousins turned to another with wide eyes, clearly connecting the dots. And then I said the part one never thought I'd say aloud. My mother and sister aren't here tonight. Not because I didn't want them, but because they made it clear my happiness was too much for them to handle. I looked directly at the back row where Alex's grandmother was quietly crying. And I refused to shrink anymore. I'm not just starting a marriage tonight. I'm starting a life that doesn't revolve around pleasing people who only love me when I'm quiet. The applause started slowly, but it grew. Not thunderous, not explosive, steady. Like people weren't just clapping for the speech, but for the courage it took to finally say it. What I didn't know was that someone in the audience had recorded the whole thing. And by morning it would be all over social media. A clip titled, "Bride Calls Out Toxic Family in Wedding Speech, Leaves Guests in Tears." Because while I was still basking in the afterglow of that speech, still holding Alex's hand, still smiling through the tears, my phone buzzed. A text from a blocked number. No words. Just a photo. Photo of my speech. Printed out. With red marker scrawled across it. "You'll regret this." And I knew exactly who sent it. There's a part of you that hopes, after you speak your truth, that the worst is behind you. That maybe, just maybe, the people you finally walked away from will retreat quietly, lick their wounds and move on. But when people lose control over you, they don't always let go. They attack. I woke up the morning after our wedding with puffy eyes, a sore throat from crying and laughing all night, and a sense of freedom I had never known before. Until I checked my phone. A few texts from friends saying things like, "Are you okay?" and "Don't read the comments." My stomach dropped. Comments. I opened Instagram and it hit me like a tidal wave. A video, posted by my cousin, of my wedding speech had gone viral. At first, the response was overwhelmingly supportive. Thousands of likes. Strangers commenting. Finally, someone calling out toxic family at their own wedding. "She's so brave. I wish I had done the same." But then, the tide turned. A new account had surfaced. No profile picture. No followers. But it was dedicated to one thing. Destroying me. It was called "Truth About Jaime." Post after post accusing me of being a narcissist. Of lying about my family. Screenshots of private childhood photos, twisted captions like, "She's always been jealous of her sister. She's weaponizing trauma for attention. Then came the email, sent anonymously, to my boss. It contained a poorly written but venomous message warning them about my mental instability, claiming I had a history of vindictive behavior, and that I was currently spiraling in public. It was signed off as a concerned family member. My heart dropped, because I knew exactly who wrote it. My mother was always two-faced in a way only people like her can be. The doting, church-going, warm-smiled mother to outsiders. But behind closed doors, she wielded shame like a weapon. And now she had a new one, the internet. It wasn't just her though. Candace jumped in too. She posted a now-deleted Facebook status that read, "It's really sad when someone needs to humiliate their own mother to feel seen. Some people just can't stand not being the center of attention." The comments section? A feeding frenzy. Old neighbors, relatives I hadn't spoken to in years, even my childhood piano teacher. All piling on, defending the poor mother and sister left out of a wedding. Me. I felt like I was drowning. This was supposed to be the beginning of something beautiful. Instead, it was like they had declared war. Alex held me while I sobbed in our tiny honeymoon Airbnb, my dress still hanging in the corner like a ghost of the day we had. I asked him through tears, did I make a mistake? But deep down I knew I hadn't. What I had done was strike a nerve so deep. It triggered every control tactic they had ever used against me. They weren't fighting for reconciliation. They were fighting to restore their version of reality. One where Candace was the center, and I was the bitter background character. But something changed in me that week. I had always played defense. Always tried to rise above, stay quiet, keep the peace. Not anymore. I reached out to the cousin who had posted the video of my speech and asked if she could tag me officially. She did. Then I made my own post. No rage. No blame. Just the truth. I wrote, "For anyone wondering, yes, I uninvited my mother and sister from my wedding. Not out of cruelty but out of survival. This wasn't a decision made lightly. It was made after a lifetime of being silenced, minimized, and dismissed. I chose peace. I chose myself. And no amount of smear campaigns will take that away from me." The comments flooded in again, this time with even more support. Other women shared their stories. People who had gone no contact with toxic parents. People who finally felt seen. And that's when I realized, this wasn't just my story. It was ours. But just as I started to reclaim the narrative, I received a message that stopped me in my tracks. It was from a woman I didn't know. She said she had something to tell me about Candace. Something that would change everything. The message sat in my inbox for hours. Unread. Unopened. But radiating the kind of dread you can feel through the screen. "I'm not trying to start drama. But you need to know, your sister isn't who you think she is." I finally clicked. Her name was Melissa. She didn't live in our town, didn't know me personally, but she did know Candace. They met through a support group for women recovering from emotionally manipulative relationships. And what Melissa told me made my stomach turn. Candace had joined the group months earlier. She went by her middle name. Claimed she was recovering from a toxic breakup with an abusive man who abandoned her after she got pregnant. She spun a story that made her the victim. Again. Melissa had sympathized, even offered support. But a few weeks later, Melissa started noticing things that didn't add up. Photos Candace shared weren't hers. They were pulled from pregnancy blogs. Ultrasounds were reverse image searched and linked to Pinterest posts. Then Candace slipped up. She told Melissa her baby was due in June, but then mentioned her baby shower had been scheduled for March. Melissa confronted her. Candace blocked her. And that was that, until Melissa saw the viral video of my wedding speech. Until she saw my name, my face, and realized who Candace really was. But Melissa didn't just come with accusations. She came with receipts, screenshots, voice notes, even a group chat where Candace bragged about reclaiming attention after being snubbed by her family. One message stood out. "She thinks she's better than me because she's getting married first. Let's see how perfect her little day is when I drop my news." But the worst was still to come. Melissa sent me a final screenshot. It was from weeks before my wedding. Candace had sent Melissa a photo of Alex, my husband, captioned, "She doesn't even know he messaged me first." I went cold. I stared at that message, heart pounding, unsure if I was reading it right. Could it be a lie? Another twisted manipulation? But the timestamps lined up. I confronted Alex gently, carefully. He looked at the screenshot and immediately said, "I've never messaged her. Not once. She DM'd me after we got engaged, remember? And I did." A vague message he brushed off at the time, thinking it was harmless. But now I realized, it was bait. Candace wasn't just jealous of my spotlight. She wanted to poison it, destroy it, in any way she could. I sat with that truth for hours. This wasn't sibling rivalry. This wasn't family dysfunction. This was hatred dressed as hurt feelings. This was a mother who enabled it. A sister who manipulated it. And a history of being the scapegoat finally catching fire. But here's the part they didn't expect. They didn't know how strong I'd become. Because this time I didn't cry. I didn't spiral. I documented everything. Every fake pregnancy post. Every message. Every attempt to sabotage me. And then, I made a choice they never saw coming. There's something hollow about discovering that your entire childhood was built on a lie. Not a misunderstanding. Not a mistake. A why. Deliberate. Sustained. Protected by the person who was supposed to protect you. After everything with Candace, the fake pregnancy, the attempt to seduce my husband, the smear campaign, I couldn't let it slide. Not anymore. So I took everything to a lawyer. I didn't know what I wanted exactly. Maybe to file a cease and desist. Maybe just to know I had options. But that meeting turned into something I never expected. I showed the attorney the screenshots, the threats, the online harassment. He nodded, taking notes. Then asked something simple. "Have there ever been any issues of identity theft in your family?" I paused. "Not that I know of." "Why?" He turned his screen to me. "A background check. 2 credit profiles. One under my name, one with a slight variation. Jaime E. Thomas and Jaime Elise Thomas. But the second one wasn't mine. It had accounts opened years ago. Cell phone plans. Store credit. Even an old hospital bill." I felt the blood drain from my face. Because the address listed was my mother's house. I stared at the page, completely numb. My mother, my own mother, had opened accounts in my name when I was still a teenager. Used my social security number. Ran up bills. Then let them go to collections. All while I was getting denied for credit cards in college and wondering why my score was so low. The lawyer gently explained that this wasn't just a mistake. It was identity theft. Fraud. And she could be prosecuted. I sat there frozen, my stomach churning with disbelief and shame. How many times had I blamed myself for struggling financially? How many times had I said, "I guess I'm just bad with money," when really, my mother was behind it all? And yet, sick as it sounds, part of me still hesitated. Do I really want to press charges against my own mom? But that question faded when I remembered all the times she told me I was selfish. All the times she told me Candace deserved more because she needed more. All the times I had begged her for help, while she was using my identity behind my back. It was never about favoritism. It was about control. The lawyer gave me a few options. Send a formal demand letter. Report her to the credit bureaus. Or, if I wanted, pursue criminal charges. I chose the first 2. I didn't want revenge. I wanted freedom. I filed the reports. I froze my credit. I reclaimed my name. But when my mother received that demand letter, all hell broke loose. She called me 17 times in a row. Left voicemails crying, begging, raging. One message chilled me to the bone. "You ungrateful brat. After everything I did for you, you think you're better than us now? Don't forget who fed you. I made you. I can break you." And that's when it clicked. It was never about love. It was never even about Candace. It was always about ownership. She saw me as something she built. A product. A resource. Not a daughter. I didn't respond. I blocked her number. But I saved those voicemails. Because deep down I knew. This wasn't the end. Not yet. I never expected to see my father's name again. He died when I was 15. And in my memory he was a quiet man. Loving. Present. But somehow muted by my mother's overpowering presence. He always told me I was strong. That I saw things clearly. At the time I thought he meant my eyesight. Now I realize, he meant them. The certified letter arrived the day after I froze my credit and filed the fraud reports. Inside, a formal notice that my mother was suing me for emotional distress, slander, and irreparable damage to the family reputation. I could barely breathe, but that wasn't the part that made me sit down and cry. Included in the envelope, almost as an afterthought, was a stapled copy of my father's will. It wasn't new. It had been written a year before his death, but I had never seen it before. Not once. In my mother's lawsuit, she claimed that I had exploited family matters for attention, including inheritance disputes. But the truth? She had hidden the will from me entirely. As I read, my hands started shaking, because the will explicitly stated that half of his estate, including a paid-off piece of property, was to go to me. Not to Candace. Not to my mother. To me. He had left me a letter too, tucked in the back. I read, "Jane, if you're reading this, it means your mother finally let this see the light. I want you to know I always saw you. You were never second best, even when the house made you feel that way. You have a good heart. Don't let it get crushed. Take what's yours and build something better." I collapsed onto the floor. Because now it made sense. Why my mother always insisted there was nothing left. Why she said Dad forgot to file things properly. Why she had always discouraged me from asking questions about money after he passed. She had stolen my inheritance. Not just my credit. Not just my dignity. But the one last thing my father tried to give me. And she buried it for over a decade. I gave the will to my lawyer. He verified it. It was legally binding. The case she filed against me, he countered it, and added a claim of inheritance fraud. I wasn't just defending myself anymore. I was reclaiming what was mine. The next few months were a blur of paperwork, legal calls, and emotional unraveling. But eventually, she withdrew the lawsuit. Candace deleted her fake accounts. The smear campaign fizzled out. Because when the truth comes out, it burns away everything fake. I sold the property my father left me. Not out of spite, but because it felt like dead weight from a life I was finally shedding. With that money, Alex and I bought a small home of our own. Quiet, peaceful. Ours. I never heard from my mother again. Not when the lawsuit ended. Not when the fraud was reported. Not even when I won. And honestly, that silence was the real freedom. Because I didn't need an apology. I didn't need reconciliation. I just needed to know that the story she tried to write for me wasn't the one I had to live. I got to write my story. One where boundaries aren't betrayal. Where walking away isn't weakness. And where surviving your family is a strength no one can take from you. Have you ever had to walk away from family to find peace? Or stood up for yourself when the cost felt too high? Tell me your story in the comments. I read them all. And if you've been through it too, just know, you are not alone. Thanks for coming on this journey with me. And remember, sometimes breaking the cycle is the bravest thing you'll ever do.